Hi everyone, welcome to the WADT podcast. Today's episode will be especially important and relevant for men who are either approaching or past the age of 50, and that's me. The big 50 is a very significant milestone in life. With it comes many changes in the areas of health, outlook, relationships, and of course work. Paksan and I, of course, are in this category of men, and therefore we are looking forward to this conversation with our special guest, Mohamed Fadhil, about what life is like passing the big 50 and what you can do to flourish it. So, a bit on Mohamed Fadhil. He has over 10 years of experience in the professional training industry as a facilitator, conducting workshops relating to emotional intelligence, well-being, digital literacy, and workplace communication. He is currently completing his Ph.D. in education. He is also a father and has an 11-year-old son. Welcome, Fadil. How are you?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Paksan and Hafiz, for having me here. Really a pleasure to be here and to have an opportunity to share more about flourishing and about fathers.
Well, welcome, Fadil, to the podcast. And let's start off with this question that we ask all our guests who happen to be fathers. And you are a father yourself.
Yeah,
Can you tell us what you
yes,
think
Alim.
fatherhood is all about?
Wow, that's a very it's a simple question. It appears to be simple, but I think it's a very complex question actually.
Well,
I
there
think
are no
father
right and wrong answers. Maybe this could be the topic for your next PhD
defining
thesis.
moment.
All right, go
I
ahead.
believe fatherhood. I see fatherhood as a process. I see it as an ecology. What do I mean by ecology? It has so many aspects. It has changed me. It is transformative. It has changed me for the better, of course. It made me a very different person. That's one. It is also transformative in the sense that it made me look at life very differently. There are challenges in the process of being a father, and it's how I manage these processes, or how fathers manage these challenges and this process, that makes them who they are. It's the choices that we make, and it's the decisions that we make. It's how we work around challenges in fatherhood. So I would say it is transformative. It has been a very insightful learning experience, and it has also changed me as a person. And in relation to today's topic, it has allowed me to flourish.
Yeah,
Yep.
tell us a bit about your PhD. I mean, just a bit. I know you got probably a lot to talk about. All right, but in summary, what is your PhD about, and how is it related to our today's topic?
Right. Okay. My PhD is on older workers in Singapore. So we are looking at the situation of the older workers in Singapore and looking at their lives. And it is related to today's topic. So I'm in the midst of working on it, and I hope to submit my PhD soon. Of course, again, hoping for good news. After about 3 years of quite very tough, hard work, but the relation with today's topic is older workers in Singapore, or older workers in general. They lead very precarious life. What do I mean by precarious lives? They are often given a work which are second in the secondary industries. Maybe these forms of work which may not be popular, or people may not want them, or they are given contract work. So they lead very precarious life, and there are also periods in their lives where they are out of work, or they are looking for work. So these are very pronounced concerns that we have right now. And of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has made things even more challenging. And therefore, the relationship with today's topic is, what are we going to do? about these older workers, and what can we do about the situation.
All right. Now, since you use the word flourish, maybe here's a good time for me to ask you, can you help us understand what the word flourish is and what is the opposite of that?
Right. So flourish, it means to have optimal functioning in life, to do well in life. It can mean different things to different people. Flourishing is indicative of a person's well-being. Well-being here would mean the person is doing well in life, functioning well, feeling good. Sure, the health, there may be some health problems, particularly if we are talking about older people, and that's normal. However, living well would mean we are able to handle our health issues. We are living life well, optimally. We are functioning, and we remain relevant to our families, our societies, and even to the workforce. So that's flourishing. The other end of the spectrum of flourishing would be languishing. And that's something we would definitely not want, or something that we would like to avoid, which is to languish. To languish means that we lead a life of, as I've mentioned earlier, a precarious life, a life where there's a loss of confidence, a life of regret. We do not see our relevance. There's no more meaning to work, or even to life, and we worry about that, because there is a possibility, and this is something we have to address, that a person or a worker who is languishing may lead to certain mental health challenges, or it may lead to even depression, and that's something we would like to avoid.
So languishing is not depression yet. Am I right to
No,
say
it's
that?
not. It's not. It's not. But there is a possibility. There is a possibility that if it goes on for a long time, it can lead to depression. The difference between this is actually in the definition of an older worker. Depression can happen to anyone.
Mm.
Even, for example, we speak of mothers with postpartum depression, or even people who have tragically been involved in a war, or so it's the circumstance that leads to depression. So in terms of when we speak about flourishing, it's the same. Anyone can flourish, but given today's topic, when we look at flourishing and the other end, the languishing of an older person, they may go through depression because of that period of their lives. And sometimes it is understood, or it is confused with what we call the midlife crisis.
That's interesting. We'll get to that.
Oh,
But also, just to kind of set the platform, you mentioned older workers, and today's podcast is focused at older persons. And like we said in the intro, is 50 and above, those who are approaching 50 and those who are already into their 50s. Why is that age 50 so significant?
yeah, we call it the golden age. So a bit of research. I'll share a bit of research on this. The age of an older worker, there's no fixed age anywhere. There's no international age of an older
Standard.
worker that we said that, okay, this is older worker is 50, that's it. In Singapore in the past, it used to be 65, because that's the retirement, that's the accepted retirement age. But things have changed. Why have things changed? Because the global dynamics have changed. Number one, globalization has changed things. With social media, with the way we conduct businesses, how organizations function. That's the first, globalization. And technology has also changed the way we work and the way we live our lives. Therefore, the retirement age has become different. Now people are working beyond retirement, and they are using even certain terms, semi-retired. I think I am retired. So, but they are not actually. So there are many terms thrown about.
And many
The
people wants to retire early.
Yeah, and therefore, if we were to look at what determines the age of an older worker, it's actually the conditions and the context that the particular older worker is in. So an older worker in Singapore may have that definition different from an older worker in Europe or in Australia or in other parts of Asia. If I may just link this to midlife crisis in the US, they said that and a person will likely suffer from the midlife crisis at the age of 45 to 65. There are certain studies which have referred to older worker as 45 as well. So why I chose 50? In the US, there are studies in the US and in Brazil that chose the age 55. Probably in relation to their government policies, in relation to their economy, in relation to their employment policies. It's quite likely that. And if we look at the UK or Ireland, in their government reports, as recent as 2018, they refer to older workers as 50 and above. And in Singapore, the National Silver Academy, in accepting learners, they accept senior learners 50 and above. Therefore, the defining age we are looking at for older workers in Singapore, which I have chosen for my work, is 50 and above. But of course, this definition, it can be fluid. It may change. It may become lower even later on, because the working lives of older workers has been extended. It's a good thing. The life expectancy for Singaporeans in general is about 84, 85 years old. Therefore, retirement has become different, no longer 65. So although the worker is an older worker, 50 and above, we call the worker an older worker. It's actually, if you realize, it's not the definition that's the problem, it's the connotation. Older worker, what does that mean?
I
Does
think
that
that's
mean
what.
like you are in the sunset in
Yeah,
That's the
over the
part that you
hill.
want to.
yeah.
That's the part that you want to talk about, right?
Mm.
Regardless of whatever definition, which point is called older workers, but the connotation itself speaks.
Yes.
Okay, so what is it that when you talk about matured workers, right? People who have gone past their prime in their career, what are the challenges out there, and what are the perception, whether it's right or wrong, and how has that affect, in terms of the individual as well as the economy or in the society?
You're right. So there are a lot of negative connotations for an older worker, and we are looking at about late 40s or even those who are 50 and above. The reasons for this for this negative connotation is something that we would like to say it's something to do with ageism. Ageism is an attitude. It's not about right or wrong. It's just that we are humans. We will have certain bias. We will adopt a certain bias. So there's a certain bias about older workers, and one of the most popular ones is the fact that older workers are slow. Cognitively, they are slow. They may not think as fast. They may not be able to move fast. And they may be stubborn. They do not want to learn. These are ageist attitudes that society has, and sometimes in the media, in movies, in advertisements, we see this coming up from time to time. What's interesting is it is quite surprising, given that probably as recent as 10 years ago, that worker was very important to the organization. And then all of a sudden, at a certain age or at a certain part of his or her life, the older worker becomes irrelevant. This could be because of certain norms in society. For example, in human resource policies, when the human resource person is young, he or she may have certain bias when they recruit someone, when they want to hire people. They may say, let's forget about older workers because they are slow, or maybe they refuse to learn, or maybe they are not savvy. Yes, some of it may be true. There are some challenges. We cannot say that all older workers are fantastic or all of them are slow. uh, it depends on the older worker itself, but generically, the ageist attitudes, ageism as a concept, is not true, and it is formed by over time. It is formed by societal perceptions. Maybe someone had a bad experience or a negative experience with an older worker, and this belief perpetuates, but it may not necessarily be true for every single older worker. So that's what my study looks at. And why is this important? Because if you look at not just Singapore, many parts of the world, especially in Asia, in Korea, in Japan, even in Australia, Europe, particularly UK, they have an increasing age of older workers in their population. We have an increasing elderly population, and this is very substantial because what do we do with this group of the population if there's not enough in our working population? Do we sideline the older workers, tell them to retire, and then it becomes a policy problem? How can we help older workers? Because now they do not have work, they do not have an income. So it is a policy challenge at one point. It is a life. It's a challenge in the life of an older worker, because without work, without feeling relevant, without contributing to society and to the workforce, to their family, they may suffer from challenges with their mental health. And studies have shown that if they are not employed in jobs, or they are not active, they can suffer from depression. It can lead to certain challenges in mental health. So there's a few challenges we are talking about. The first is the norms or ageism, ageist attitudes. It's not about criminalizing it. It's not that. But it is about a challenge that society have because of certain bias by media, by social media, by life experiences. And even if you look at the tripartite alliance in Singapore, TADAM, they have tried to introduce or encourage fair practices in employment. So it's got to do with this. And that's one aspect. The second aspect is the older worker himself or herself. Without being in employment, without feeling relevant, they will suffer from certain mental health challenges, very likely. And then the third part, we have the country, Singapore, the nation itself. It is suffering from a deficit in its workforce because our birth rate is not very high, but we have an increasing elderly population. So how do we mitigate that?
I totally agree that no matter your age, I think everybody, it will be very good to be economically, employed as well as meaningfully engaged, so that our well-being will be in a healthy state. Okay. Well, let's take a break for a commercial break right now. Hey listeners, Hafiz and I are very excited to tell you about something new that's happening. We are starting a book club and would like you to join us. There are vast amounts of knowledge and wisdom in books that are readily accessible to everyone. Reading is also a way to learn from experts in various fields. Not a reader? No problem. Follow our podcast and listen to the episode where Hafiz and I discuss and summarize a book or portion of a book, and we will use that as a starting point for our book club discussion. We will meet on the first Wednesday of every month. Go to our Instagram and Facebook pages to find out how you can join this book club. We will see you there. And now, back to our podcast. All right, let's talk about midlife crisis. We were about to talk about that earlier. So would you like to share with us what's midlife crisis all about?
Okay. They can be interrelated, midlife crisis, but I think midlife crisis, from my humble opinion, from what I have read, the little tiny bit that I know, the midlife crisis in the US is, as more popularly known, it is between the ages of 45 to 65. Normally it happens to men, and this is where at 45 they come to this realization, that there are things in their life they have not achieved, and they would like to achieve, and they feel they are not going to be able to achieve it. For example, they might have wanted to buy a sports car when they were younger, They wanted to fly all over the world, but they were not able to. So they have a life of regret, and this regret might eat them, and it might result in certain anxieties, impulsivity, where they have money and then now they buy the sports car that they wanted to buy when they were younger because they couldn't afford it when they were younger. But the challenge is right now they've got a family, they shouldn't be buying that sports car. So that those are life decision making skills that they need to weigh about. So that comes the midlife crisis, and normally we see dramatic changes in behavior where there's a regret, impulsivity. We see the person being anxious, or the person may start losing interest in life in terms of behavior and appearance. But if it is the presentations of these issues becomes prolonged or worsen, and then we've got to look at mental health issues that the person may be facing, because midlife crisis can lead to that. It is not depression, but it may lead to symptoms of clinical depression, and that person will definitely need to seek medical help, which is something that I would like to add about stigma of mental health. Being depressed, we will encounter this. There's a stigma about mental health that people are crazy. That's really not true at all. It is just, again, another form of what I would say a bias that people have. We suffer from physical ailments such as fever, cold, cough, headache. Similarly, we suffer from mental health. But sometimes the mental health challenges becomes very pronounced where it is important to seek help. And it's okay to have it. It's just important to seek help. That's the part that I want to highlight. So that's the midlife crisis where we have that, shall I say, in a colloquial way, the blah feeling, blah, I do not want to do that, or no, I don't feel like it. We lose that drive in life, and some studies, there's a lot of argument on this. They say that happiness is U-shaped from late teens right up to about late 40s. The happiness level goes down. Kids are normally they are happy. And then when they are late 40s, they start to become happy again. So I hope that's a good sign. And some studies have also said, sadly, happiness is probably 40% linked to our genes.
Oh, really? Wow. I hope not.
But for me today, I would like to focus on that 60%. Or that certain percentage where we can change it. Actually, our social environment and ourselves, we could change our mindset, and how do we handle the midlife crisis, or how do we prevent the midlife crisis from becoming worse?
Yeah. So regardless, 40%, 30% is genetic or not, you still have that bigger chance to change it. And
Absolutely.
let's talk about when you're in midlife crisis, when you are treated like a matured worker who is not valued, from the individual perspective. Okay, uh, how do you transform or help a person transform from the state of that emotional depression or
In
unhappiness?
other words, how you go
Yeah,
from languishing to flourishing.
Flourishing.
exactly.
I think the first step is, for me, there are many studies on flourishing. A lot of well-known theories as well. For example, Ryan and Deci talks about self-determination theory, where a person can have certain factors in his or her life to succeed. But when I look at flourishing, how can we help that person? Is firstly, is an awareness. The first step, I believe, is an awareness of the condition of the person, of what he is going through, what is causing him to feel like that. And the next step that I would like to highlight is to be open to new ideas. So if the person is suffering or languishing or having a midlife crisis, they want to do something impulsive. So we could tell them, first you got to be aware of this. You got to be aware that you're going through this. But yet, if you want to do something, yeah, we could do something. Let's do something. But instead of doing something impulsively, we could do something strategically. And that could be the steps towards flourishing. So we could look at certain things like first, the person's strength. We could use a strength-based approach. What is the person passionate about? What is the person good at? What will this particular person like to do? There's a concept in Japan, unique to the Japanese, about finding meaning and purpose, and they call it Ikigai.
That's Hafi's favorite word.
Ikigai. Yeah. Of course, to be very honest, I love that concept myself, and I can imagine why a lot of people would as well. But it is not easy to achieve it. Therefore, we also need to look at the concept of flourishing, because, for example, if we look at a study by Huppert and So, 2013 or 2014, what they did was they use mental health challenges that people have. For example, for someone to be depressed, what are the symptoms or what are the presentations? For someone to be anxious, so what they did was they mapped the opposite. They just take that, they map the direct opposite. So, for example, we have someone who is listless, refuse to learn anything. We have engagement, someone who loves learning new things. For someone who cannot find meaning or relevance to what he or she does for work, they flip it. They say that finding meaning means you feel that what you do in life is valuable and worthwhile, and that you're optimistic about your future, and so on. And the other aspect of flourishing, there are 10 factors such as meaning, vitality, engagement, competence. If you look at competence, I'm very certain 99% or perhaps 100% of older workers, they have developed certain competencies in their life because they have such a rich working life, 20, 30, 40 years. They are competent in certain skills. However, they do need help with the meaning and engagement, where when they look at work, they need to see, how do I translate my work right now at my age? And the other aspect of it is, and I would say this is a very important aspect, is resilience. So resilience, in this theory, resilience, I think it is again a concept that has always been defined in various ways. But resilience, according to Duckworth, according to certain theorists, Duckworth, Caroline Miller, according to Seligman, all these are famous theories on well-being. They have said that resilience means you are able to bounce back to a normal state in the face of a challenge. You are not going to languish. You can handle the problem. Therefore, I would say that this theory of flourishing, it helps the older worker, because if someone is in midlife crisis, it is a challenge. It is a problem, and we are recognizing and acknowledging it. We are not denying it. We are not brushing it aside. We are just confronting it, recognizing it, and looking at how to strategize and handle it using the positive aspects of our life. So resilience is one. The other aspect that I feel is very important is positive relationships. And you mentioned the question that you asked earlier, how can we help? And that is a very symbolic of positive relationships. How can we help others? Our relationship with others, as friends, as colleagues, as family members, as members of the community, or even a biking group or a football enthusiast. We can help each other. Positive relationships play a role. It gives meaning to people. And when we look at an older worker, in particular, physically, yes, sometimes biologically we can't do much because people will get slow. They may suffer from certain physical ailments. We are not expecting, but that particular worker has a big important role to play because of their, what I would describe as crystallized wisdom. They have developed this wisdom over the years, and you can't really put a finger on wisdom because they have this certain, they can see around the corner.
That's right.
They can see
That's right.
around the corner. They have this insight, and they will know what to do in certain situations. And life is so unpredictable. So crystallized wisdom has a very important role at work, in our family. So that's where I feel older workers should start looking at themselves differently. Just flip it and
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
change their role.
for Eric Erickson's model of the eight
Mm.
stages of psychosocial development of a person,
Mm-hmm.
at this age of this stage of life, around 45 and up to 65 or so on, he calls it generativity versus stagnation. So generativity is basically when a person begins to ask questions like, how do I impact what I'm doing? Does it impact the next generation? Does it leave behind, and make a difference in the world, in the society, or even in my family? And they begin to look, and think about how can I begin to impart what I have to the younger ones, so that's called generativity. And I think for older people like maybe Hafiz and I, we need to make a mindset shift in that sense, of and probably by this stage our kids are more or less grown up, all right, and so providing for the family may not be such a big thing now. To some extent we still have to keep ourselves alive, so therefore we can shift our focus to not just working to make a living, but living so that the next generation can benefit from our experience, our wisdom, and I like to always remind people, wisdom very often comes from learning from our mistakes, the mistakes that we've made.
Yeah, yeah,
If you ask the
and
older people,
correct.
have you made mistakes? I'm sure they would be very quick to admit, yes, I've made a lot of mistakes. And that's why I want to tell you, don't do what I've done.
No, Paksan, it's about I invested in making mistakes in the past. All right, and the return of that investment, I'm wiser
Absolutely.
now. All right, and
Yes, yes.
relating to what Fadil was saying about crystallized intelligence, I mean this theory by Raymond Cattell, right?
Mm.
The opposite is fluid intelligence. All of us have this too, but as you grow older, you have more crystallized intelligence. So fluid intelligence is where the capacity to reason, ability to learn new things, and also think abstractly and solve about problem solving. While crystallized intelligence is about having prior learning, past experience. We have a lot of facts, of the past, and it increases in age. And if you put this together, all right, the one with experience, another person with a more up to date and be able to solve the real, current problem of the day. He has the technology, he has the updated, know-how. You put together, that's called mentoring, all right?
Yes,
And
yes,
that is,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, and that is something most organizations, all right, don't understand. And even if they want to do any form of mentoring, they do not realize actually that it is quite complex actually. It is not just about formally appointed one to be a mentor and a mentee, but it's whole culture. It's a
Mm.
culture of appreciating the older person for his strength and the younger person for his strength, rather than highlighting their weaknesses, right? And once you have identified each other's strength, that is where when you work together, it becomes uh, growth. There'll be
Absolutely,
growth.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
it's something
think.
that
Mm.
I really passionate about. And when you talk about the Ikigai, now you start me talking about it.
Okay.
I know we don't have much time, but it's about flipping. Yes, it's about flipping. Because when I do my coaching, right, I always use this, and it's very simple actually. The technique, because Ikigai is about four circles. The Venn diagram. If you're in the middle, you have all the circles. You have achieved
In
Ikigai.
an optimal state. Yeah.
Yeah, but most of us are at the location where we don't have one or two of the circles. All right. So what you need to do is just flip it. All right. That is your area that you need to work on. All right. You are good at this, but you need to work on other things that you need more time and more effort to do. Yeah.
Just to add on a little bit on based on what you yourself, Hafiz, and Paksan have shared. So I think Paksan mentioned something about learning from mistakes, older workers. So there's a term that when I speak to older workers, there's a term that they would like to use, and I would like to share this. They call it productive failure.
Interesting.
So from the failure, it becomes productive because they learn how to increase efficiency using the failure. And as you have said, I think Hafiz, it's a form of investment. They have made that mistake before, and they can guide the younger workers on what to look out for. Of course, the challenges that the younger workers will face is different, but the fact that there are certain things that they can mentor the younger workers is very important, as you have shared. And the other thing that I think is important as well is to look at older workers. They are pushed to the margins. They are pushed to the margins. Of course, we can look at the theories of marginality, but that's not our focus. What we are going to look, as you have said, we're going to flip it. And what older workers can do is just to look at where they can contribute and how they can remain relevant. And when they do this and they find meaning and purpose, they will see an improvement in their health.
Mm.
They will see a massive improvement, very likely, in their health. And if we look at Maslow's self-actualization, Maslow's pyramid, self-actualization is also one of it. And of course, there can be mitigating factors. For example, if I imagine if I get old and I would like to be in a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. I know I don't think it's a good idea for me to drive one. I'll just get my son to drive one. I'll just sit as the passenger. I think that's good enough in that sense.
and
So
and
it's just
enjoy
one.
the
Yeah,
breeze if you
yeah.
open the window, and the
So long as
adrenaline.
you can take a selfie of yourself standing next to one, that you have achieved
I'm
it.
yeah. And I think that's also interesting, Paxton, that you mentioned it, because it's the way that we look at life. And earlier when you mentioned that your both you and Hafiz with children who are already doing well, working, and you are actually putting. I mean, if I may be, I hope this is a suitable example. This podcast itself, this series itself. Firstly, it is a manifestation of purpose in life, of finding meaning in fatherhood
That's right.
at a certain stage. So that's the first. And the second, it is also very symbolic. It is also a presentation of someone who is flourishing, because it helps others flourish. The both of you are trying to help others flourish, to coach, or to give better ideas, to motivate others that this is not it. There are other things, and a lot of people associate happiness with money. I'm not saying we don't need money, because standard of living in Singapore is very high. But there's a book that I would like to recommend, The Happiness Project by Greta Rubin. I'll give it. It's a New York Times bestseller, and she writes it in a very fictional way about her life. So she tests theories. She says, "I'm not rich, but I'm going to test happiness theories." And then she tells this story in her book. Not she lives a normal life. She's not a millionaire. And what happened is she looks at certain things, and sometimes I think what we should do is we have lived life on the fast lane. It's nice sometimes for older workers, as I've mentioned, to be aware and go slow and look at things in perspective. Small things in life that makes life different, makes life better. And sometimes they may be able to do something about this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're saying about you. Thank you for rooting for us. Thank you for rooting for
Yeah.
WADT.
I
All
think the
right, podcast.
relevance, yeah, because of,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the fact that we're not just sharing. I mean, I speak for myself. I'm learning, right? I adapt myself as dad's in progress or man in progress, whichever it sounds better. But it's about being able to accept, all right, your situation, at the same time, be socially aware of things, all right. I mean, depression, unhappiness got to do with something that in us is something missing, okay, and we are typically inside a social being, right? And having to socialize our ideas, our thoughts, having to meet people like you, Fadil, learn, things that we wouldn't have learned by, just talking with just both of us, all right, is we are expanding further our thoughts, our way of thinking, all right, and be able to help others. That itself, is something that the point that we want to make, all right. at any point in time, actually, we can help people. And the older we are, the more things we have gone through life, the more actually our potential to help. So there's no place for unhappiness. There's no place for depression. There's no
Yeah,
place for being over the hill. There's no place for being seen negatively as an older worker.
absolutely.
Yeah, we should now accept, all right, the fact that the older you are, and this is against ageism, okay, the more valuable you are,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, that's and besides that, if there's a lot of certain conceptions that older workers are slow. Well, that may be true, but the thing is, if you look at technology, a lot of our processes in life, when you pay for groceries, when you have some food in a restaurant, you can pay using QR codes. There's really no issue any longer. Technology has automated certain things for us, and that is very helpful for people who maybe older workers, they can't carry heavy groceries. That's not a problem anymore. You can do it online. There are a lot of things that we can automate, and sometimes what I would like to highlight is that what do we do then? Do older workers go out because everything is automated? They could take time with their family and go grocery shopping, and don't carry any of it. Just go grocery shopping, talk with their family, look at stuff at the supermarket shelves,
Mm.
talk about it. What's good, what's not good, what do they like to eat, and then go back and just shop online without having to carry it. But it's that purpose, that positive relationships, as you have mentioned. We are having, the two of you. I've also learned a lot, and developing this podcast to first develop positive relationships with the community, with fathers, and second, we are establishing a platform of optimism, which is all, these are all under the concept of flourishing. And third, we are engaging people to learn more, and said, okay, you are older now, you could go for certain courses, you could take up baking, get a new hobby, volunteer, and then there is already relevance and purpose with that. And they will find that their well-being, their mental health will improve a lot by doing this. And life is short in that sense. Maxime, although if we look at statistics, life is not short in a good way. In Japan, in Singapore, we have very life expectancy is very high, and therefore I think we should give it meaning as much as we can.
That's right.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. One question that I often think about is, with all the advancement in technology, automation, digital technology, which makes our life apparent. I mean, supposedly more convenient. We do things faster. The question I have is, all right, so you do save time. What are you going to use the time for? Right? Okay, you save so much time, but okay, so if you have half an hour every day extra because of all these technology, what are you going to use it for? I think that will be a very interesting question to think about and to try to answer. But I think we need to wrap up here. But thank you very much, Fadhil, for sharing so much very insightful, information, and to helping us who are over the 50. I won't say over the hill, but over 50, to know that we can flourish. We don't have to be under the circumstances. We don't have to give in, give up, and feel that we're no longer useful. We are useful. We just need to find the ways that we can contribute back to society or at least to the next generation. So thank you very much for your time, and we hope to have you back on our podcast when your research paper has been published, and then you can share with us even more. So we look forward to that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you
Fadhil.
for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share just some humble opinions, and I myself, by being on board, have learned a lot as well.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, this has been the WADT podcast. Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us so that you will not miss any future episodes. Also, do let fellow dads know about this podcast. If you'd like to react to what you have heard today, just head to one of our social media platforms. We are on Instagram and Facebook. Or you can email us at wearedads2@gmail.com. Do also let us know what you would like us to discuss in future podcast episodes. Till the next time, this is Hafiz and Parkson signing off.